And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First graphic here shows IFR continuing to cover a good portion of the Bering Sea out here, all of the Aleutians into Bristol Bay across Kodiak Island, and some IFR here over the mid and upper Tanana Valley, extending down in toward Denali Park and along the western Alaska Range. VFR to the west and north of that area, and then some IFR for the central and western Arctic coast. And with the system coming across the Gulf of Alaska, we've got IFR all along the coastal areas of the Panhandle and inland here over the northern sections. And for the afternoon, IFR along and off the north coast of the Panhandle, across the Gulf into Kodiak Island, some IFR there in Prince William Sound. Otherwise, pretty good VFR now for the interior, North Slope right on down into northern Cook Inlet, and the Kuskokwim Valley down to Dillingham, Togiak, and those areas, even King Salmon looking good. Some IFR through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, covering all of the western Bering Sea, all of the Bering Sea actually, and all of the Aleutians, and IFR off the Arctic coast. And that may stay off more or less there for the most part through Friday morning. And North Slope definitely VFR, so good conditions return here, covering all of interior Alaska, except for the Copper River Basin. There's some IFR in that area. And from the east side of Kodiak Island across the Gulf, all of the Panhandle forecast to be IFR Friday morning, as well as the Bering Sea from Diomede Island all the way down to the Aleutians. And for the forecast for Friday afternoon, have a little bit of improvement here over the northern Bering Sea, but for the most part, the Aleutians and Pribilof stay in the IFR zone, marginal for St. Lawrence Island. VFR, North Slope right on down into, actually Bristol Bay here, some marginal VFR for Kodiak Island, mostly east of Shelikof Strait there, and then on up into the North Gulf Coast, marginal VFR, and a band of IFR there over the southeast coast. And for passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, back to VFR flying conditions for both those passes in the Brooks Range, maybe for a couple of days, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal. Rather marginal for windy at times, VFR at other times. And windy, mostly VFR for Isabel and Mentasta, and Tanita as well. And for Portage, IFR improving to marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White look rather marginal. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here, kind of shifting eastward a little bit there over the eastern Brooks Range of the Arctic coast. About 8,000 feet here from the Bering Sea into the Yukon Delta, 6,000 feet for the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the eastern North Gulf Coast. Out to the west, anywhere from 8 to 10,000 feet. And for icing, not much out here over the western areas, a little bit of a heavier icing threat west-southwest there of St. Matthew Island. Otherwise, the more significant areas with that system coming into the Gulf of Alaska, that active front pushing up toward the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. With that, there would be some considerable moderate rime icing here for just about all of the southeast coast to Yakutat, and to a lesser extent here along the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet areas, also on down to Kodiak Island. And for the upper level wind flow chart at 33,000 feet, we've got one low center kind of cut off here that came down from the north there, cut off over the Seward Peninsula or Norton Sound area. And we got easterlies on the north side of that, up to 95 knots. Low pressure here near Kodiak Island. Southwest, 85 knots, but blowing into the southeast coast, 60 to 65 knots there, and mostly the main jet south of the Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, light winds here for the Aleutians, all the Bering Sea. We've got some northeasterlies up to 35 knots there, clipping Cape Lisburne, and pretty light over the interior though, and then maybe some northwesterlies at 35 knots around Barter Island, Kaktovik. And stronger winds down here just west of Prince of Wales Island, up to 55 knots. You can see pretty good southwest flow there, bringing all that rain and clouds into the area, with the main low, though, hanging back just east of Kodiak Island. 3,000 feet shows that low center a little farther to the east. Pretty strong band of winds here along that front, and in advance of it, up to 60 knots there, all along the coastal the coast of the southeast coast here, and blowing on up into Prince William Sound. Light in the interior, strong winds there just off the eastern Arctic coast, but pretty light here for the Bering Sea down to the Aleutians. So taking a look at turbulence, we've got considerable moderate turbulence forecast for St. Lawrence Island, the western Seward Peninsula up to the northwest coast, the eastern North Slope areas, and all along the North Gulf Coast here from Iliamna Lake, Kamishak Bay, Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, and all of the Panhandle.